I didn't think much of it when she knocked on my door that evening. We'd lived next to each other for nearly 2 years, exchanging polite nods, borrowed sugar once, held the door open a few times, nothing more. Just neighbors sharing a thin wall and separate lives. So when I opened the door and saw her standing there, hair loosely tied, worry sitting plainly on her face, I assumed it was something small. Maybe a power issue, maybe a package mix-up. Sorry to bother you, she said softly. I need a small favor. That's how it always starts, isn't it? A small favor. I nodded before she even finished explaining. She needed someone to stay with her son for an hour. Her babysitter had canceled last minute. She had an important work call she couldn't miss. I hesitated for half a second, long enough to consider the awkwardness, then agreed. Because that's what decent people do. They help when they can. Her apartment smelled faintly of coffee and clean laundry. Not staged clean, but lived in. Toys were scattered in one corner, books stacked neatly in another. Her son, Noah, couldn't have been more than 6. Big eyes, shy smile. He clung to her leg until she knelt and whispered something reassuring in his ear. He's easy, she said, standing back up. Just cartoons and snacks. I'll be back before you know it. She left in a hurry, keys jangling, phone already pressed to her ear. The door clicked shut behind her, and suddenly it was just me and a kid I barely knew, in a home that wasn't mine. Noah warmed up quickly. We built a crooked tower out of blocks. He told me about school, about how he wanted to be an astronaut but also a firefighter and also a dinosaur. Kids have a way of pulling you into their world without asking permission. Before I realized it, an hour had passed. Then too, I checked my phone. No messages. I debated calling her, but just as I reached for it, the door opened. She stepped in, shoulders slumped, exhaustion written all over her face. I'm so sorry, she said immediately. The call ran long. Are you okay? Is he okay? We both laughed when Noah answered for us, announcing proudly that everything was awesome. She thanked me more times than necessary, her gratitude spilling out like she'd been holding it in all day. You didn't have to stay, she said quietly, walking me to the door. But thank you, really. That should have been the end of it. A good deed, a neighborly moment, but life has a strange way of nudging doors open when you least expect it. The next week, her car wouldn't start. I offered jumper cables. The week after that, a leaky faucet. I happened to have a wrench. None of it felt forced. It just happened. Conversations grew longer. Smiles lingered. We learned little things about each other. Where we grew up, why we moved here, the dreams we once had and the ones we were still afraid to say out loud. One night, after fixing a loose cabinet hinge, she offered me coffee. I said yes without thinking. We sat at her small kitchen table, mugs warming our hands. Noah was asleep. The apartment was quiet in that gentle, late evening way. You're really kind, she said, not looking at me. I shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. Just doing favors. She smiled at that, but there was something in her eyes, something heavier. You know, she said slowly, I'm not used to people staying. I didn't ask what she meant. Sometimes silence is the best response. She filled it herself. After my husband left, everyone was helpful at first. Meals, advice, promises. Then, life moved on for them. And I was still here. Still tired. Still trying. Her voice didn't crack, but I felt the weight of every word. I understood more than I let on. Loss doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just quiet, evenings in an empty chair. From then on, I stopped thinking of my visits as favors. They were something else, something I couldn't quite name. We cooked together. We watched movies with Noah wedged between us. Sometimes we talked late into the night about nothing important and everything that mattered. I told myself not to read into it. She was vulnerable. I was available. That didn't mean anything deeper. I reminded myself that lines existed for a reason. Then came the night everything shifted. She'd called earlier, voice shaky, asking if I could come over. Noah had a fever. She was scared. I didn't hesitate. I brought medicine, checked the temperature, reassured her it would pass. We sat on the couch while Noah slept, his small chest rising and falling steadily. Thank you for coming so fast, she whispered. Of course, I said. The clock ticked loudly in the silence. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. "I know you were just being nice at first," she said. "Just a neighbor doing favors." I nodded. "But you're more than that now," she continued. "At least, you are to us." I looked at her then, really looked. The tired strength in her posture. The way she held herself together for her son. The warmth she carried even when she was exhausted. I felt something tighten in my chest. "I don't want to overstep," she added quickly. "I just needed you to know." I stood up, suddenly unsure of where to put my hands, my thoughts, my heart. "I should probably go," I said, hating the way it sounded. She stood too, walking me to the door like she always did. Her hand rested on the doorknob, but she didn't turn it right away. "Stay a little longer," she said softly. 3 simple words, no drama, no pressure, just an invitation. I stayed, not because I felt obligated, not because I thought it would lead somewhere specific. I stayed because in that moment, it felt right. Because sometimes life offers you a choice between safety and connection, and you don't always get both. We didn't cross any lines that night. We talked. We sat close. We shared the kind of quiet that only feels comfortable when trust is present. When I finally left, something had changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to be undeniable. From that point on, we stopped pretending it was just neighborly kindness. We moved slowly, carefully. For No's sake, for ours. There were awkward moments, honest conversations, fears laid bare on the table. But there was also laughter, support, a sense of being seen. Months later, I realized I no longer thought of my apartment as home. Home was the place next door, where someone saved me a seat on the couch and trusted me with their world. I had walked into her life thinking I was just doing a favor. Helping out, passing time. I had no idea that by staying a little longer, I was stepping into a story that would change everything. It began, truly, long before the knock on my door, though I did not realize it then. Part 1 of every meaningful story is often quiet, almost forgettable, disguised as routine. My days had followed a predictable rhythm: work, home, silence, repeat. I lived alone, not unhappily, but without much expectation that anything would change. The apartment complex was calm, anonymous, a place where people passed one another without learning names. She was one of those people to me at first. The woman next door, polite, reserved, invisible in the way adults learn to be. Occasionally, I heard movement through the wall, soft music, a child's laughter, the muffled sounds of a life unfolding just out of reach. I knew she was a single mother only because I never saw anyone else with her. She managed groceries, school mornings, and evenings alone. I respected that from a distance, never imagining our paths would cross in any meaningful way. That evening, when she knocked, I had just finished dinner. The television played quietly in the background, a habit more than entertainment. I remember thinking I might ignore the knock, let someone else answer if it were important. But something, perhaps instinct, perhaps simple decency, made me get up. She stood there hesitantly, as if rehearsing her words even as she spoke them. Up close, she looked more tired than I had ever noticed. Not unkempt, not careless, just worn thin by responsibility. Her request was simple: an hour, maybe less.